Go.
If you see me call me Onyibo, Makanapu Onyibo, anywhere I enter they call me Onyibo, Makanapu Onyibo, all over the world they call me Onyibo, Makanapu Onyibo,
History was made in Anambra State on Monday, May 21st, when Ndigbo from the 5 states of the southeast, including the Igbo-speaking parts of Rivers and Delta states, gathered at the Alex Ekweme Square to declare the Igbo position in the ongoing dialogue on the restructuring of Nigeria. The gathering drew the bold and the brightest among the Igbo under one roof to hammer out the Igbo position on Nigeria, which has become popularly known as the Ekweme Square Declaration. In observance of the primacy of God in the realization of a sustainable nation, the tone of discourse in the summit was set by the clergy, who, after chastising Ndigbo for their preponderant and often reckless clamor for material acquisitions, exhorted them to sincerely seek the face of God for solutions to Nigeria's multiple problems.
We look at those who brought us this far. We talk about people like Awka, who's put the entire fortune of his family on the line in order to provide leadership.
Qualifying the premium essence of the summit and its apposite timing are the high-profile attendance and enthusiastic participation spread across the 5 major Igbo-speaking states of Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Enugu and Imo, and the 2 contiguous states of Delta and Rivers, a good percentage of whose populations speak Igbo. Participating also were other ethnic nationalities in Nigeria who warmly share the Igbo cause for a sustainable Nigerian nation. These, through their impressive representations at the summit, made far-reaching remarks and submissions in defense of restructuring as the singular way out of Nigeria's long rigmarole in the woods of political indiscretion. All freely spoke with one voice against the sustained lopsidedness in the application of state powers to institutionalize favoritism and ethnic dominance of a group or groups against fair interest and well-being of the greater majority of other Nigerians.
The essence of the summit today is for the entire people of Eastern Nigeria, number one, to speak with one voice, to agree on the things that we consider important and beneficial to us as a people from the Eastern Nigeria. And what we are talking about is essentially making Nigeria to be a country for each and every one of us.
This is a rally in favor of restructuring. So there are leaders here from the south, from the southwest, from the middle belt area, and from the other northern. So we are all here to give them support because we believe in restructuring for peace, security, and safety, and for the development of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Nigeria should be restructured.
As the host governor and a bold apologist of Igbo cause in Nigeria, Chief Willie Obiano, in his goodwill message, probed the place of Ndigbo in Nigeria. He insisted that unless Nigerians begin to ask hard questions on how to truly attain oneness and progress, the growth and stability the country earnestly needs will remain elusive. Chief Obiano maintained that only sincere efforts at providing answers to such necessary questions would guarantee hope for Nigeria as a nation with the turn of events across the globe.
Our ancestors must have had this day in mind when they gave us the saying that Izukama Daneji. We have come together today as a family to strengthen the ties that bind us all together in this big federation. Indeed, there's probably no better time for this conversation than now. So I welcome you all to this dialogue. Brothers and sisters, in the past 58 years, Ndigbo have worked tirelessly with their fellow Nigerians to lay the foundations for a better federation and a more perfect union. We have made the most sacrifices, and most often than not, we have also paid the supreme price for the unity of this country. But we have made these sacrifices in the belief that in the contemporary history of mankind, the road to a nationhood is often paved with the blood of the people who have paid the price for Nigeria's greatness. Every nation on earth is a work in progress. Citizens of both advanced and developing countries continue to ask their countries hard questions that will lead them to a better federation, a better nation, and a better society. And Nigeria cannot be an exception to this rule. So we must ask Nigeria hard questions too, fellow Nigerians. The question on everybody's mind today is, what kind of country do Nigerians want for themselves? This is the question that will determine Nigeria's promise, Nigeria's future, and Nigeria's greatness. Happily, different ethnic groups and geopolitical zones have made bold efforts to ask this question in the recent times. And today, Ndigbo will ask their own. As governor of Anambra State, I was born and raised in Nigeria, and I've lived in Nigeria for a better part of my life. I've lived the Nigerian dream, experienced the horrors of Nigeria's many heartbreaks. I know what my people want from Nigeria, and the question we must ask of Nigeria. We must ask what every forward-looking people want from any socio-cultural arrangement: life, liberty, and a chance to raise happy families. We must ask for a just, a fair, and equitable federation where every citizen is guaranteed the freedom to be the best they can and to aspire to the highest position in the land, regardless of their tribe, their culture, or religion. Indeed, no ethnic group has as much emotional investment in Nigerian projects as Ndigbo. And now, we have been called upon to reimagine Nigeria. We welcome this challenge with both hands. For if we rose from the ruins of the Civil War to rebuild Eastern Nigeria in record time, there should be no doubt about what Ndigbo can bring to the table in a fair, just, and equitable Nigeria. I have no doubt that this summit will articulate a wise, realistic, hopeful position that will represent the key expectations of Ndigbo from Nigeria. It is on this note that I welcome you all once again to Anambra State, the light of the nation.
The chairman of the summit, Chief Emmanuel Iwanyamu, in emphasizing the expediency of an enlarged, constructive and sincere dialogue on reworking Nigeria, recognized positive leadership in the southeast as the reason for the absence of organized violent youth groups as obtained in other parts of the country.
This is a very special event. This is a very special day in the history of Igbos. And I think in the history of this country, Nigeria. At the end of the day, decisions will be taken on where this country and where we will not go. So this is history. I'm glad that every state in Igbo land is here represented. When you go home, you will tell your children that on a day like this, we met, and we met history, and we took decisions that is going to shape the destiny of those born and unborn. All of us here must pause for a while and ask ourselves a certain question, or some questions. We must reflect into our past. We must examine our present and then have a peep into the future. When we do that, we then make sure we make mistakes. I reflect into our past, and I'm very proud of our past. The history of our past is a profile in great achievements, in all fields. So I think the problem in Nigeria can be solved by restructuring and by people, leaders of those places, meeting and talking to their people. The same way people leaders have handled the news here.
The compendious Ohanaeze document, which on endorsement became the Ekwueme Square Declaration, was delivered by Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo, the Chairman Planning and Strategy Committee and Organizing Committee of the Southeast Zonal Summit of the Ohanaeze Ndigbo Worldwide, aptly named Ndigbo Summit.
Ladies and gentlemen, we argue that the Nigerian project is at crossroads. Nigeria needs to be fixed, and all of us need to sit down and fix Nigeria. We argue that despite its abundant potentials and promise, most Nigerians agree that Nigeria, as presently structured and governed, is not sustainable. In the run-up to Nigeria's independence and after independence in the 1960 and 63 Republican constitutions, our founding fathers, Right Honorable Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Sir Ahmadu Bello, and their compatriots from all the then southern and northern minority ethnic groups negotiated and gave us a truly federal constitutions, which embodied the true principles of federalism, namely autonomy of federating units or regions, fiscal federalism, devolution of power, citizenship, indigenship rights, etc. Under these constitutions, freely negotiated by the Nigerian people, there was a consensus that a truly federal structure was the best for a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious society such as Nigeria to guarantee justice, fairness, equity, freedom, liberty, as well as balanced and competitive political and economic structure to give every citizen and section of the country a framework to maximize their God-given potentials. The present 1999 constitution, foisted by the military regime, which makes a false claim that it is a federal constitution, unhinged all the structures of true federalism and bequeathed a de facto unitary system with concentration of powers and resources at the center. With the choking unitary system and all its dysfunctionality for a diverse country, Nigeria has remained relatively unstable, oscillating unpredictably between the flickers of hope and despair. And most Nigerians agree, ladies and gentlemen, that this system cannot survive and endure for much longer. Albert Einstein, the genius, once said that it is the mark of insanity to continue to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. For several years, many organized groups, intellectuals, statesmen, and women have persistently called for a revisit to the structure of the Federation to make it work for all Nigerians. It started first as calls for a sovereign national conference. In recent times, the calls have become even more strident and desperate. The Yoruba nation has held a rally at Ibadan in September 2017 and published its agenda on restructuring Nigeria. The South-South geopolitical zone held its own summit in Yenagoa in March this year and endorsed their template of restructuring. Even the All Progressive Congress, APC, set up a committee on restructuring, and these recommendations for restructuring Nigeria are public knowledge. The 19 states of the former northern region have also set up their own committee on restructuring, and this report is expected. The Middle Belt Zone is scheduled to hold its own summit on restructuring, while several political parties now make true federalism the centerpiece of their manifestos for a better Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, at no time in Nigeria's history has there been a greater broad support for restructuring the federation than now. For the estimated 57 million Nigerian Igbos scattered in all villages of Nigeria and around the world, the demand for a restructured Nigeria that guarantees security of life and property, freedom and liberty, equity, justice and development has a unique significance. No other ethnic group has a greater stake in the Nigerian project than Ndigbo, by virtue of tens of millions of Ndigbo who live and invest everywhere in Nigeria outside Igbo land. But there are also victims at every turn. Every now and again, threats to their lives and properties, as well as brazen discrimination and marginalization in critical areas, underscore their general treatment as unequal citizens of Nigeria. Consequently, there is a segment of the Igbo society that has lost hope in the Nigerian dream, believes that Nigeria will never work for the Igbos, and hence agitate for an exit from the Union. But a preponderance of views among Igbos is that a restructured Nigeria that works for all Nigerians remains the first best option. The agenda that we present here distills from accumulated years of work on the subject by successive regimes of Ohanaeze Ndigbo, various Igbo think tanks, especially the submissions of the Igbo leaders of thought for the 2014 National Conference, various Igbo positions for the 1994 Constitutional Conference and the 2005 and 2014 National Conferences, a report of the committee set up by the Southeast Governors on the review of the 1999 Constitution, the report of the World Igbo Summit by the Igbo Renaissance Center, Uturu, various submissions or reports of Bayaki Kenga, Izu Umunna, Nzuku Umunna, the Igbo Intelligentsia, the World Igbo Congress, reports of various meetings and conferences of Igbo stakeholders and leaders. The Ohanaeze Planning and Strategy Committee and the Ohanaeze Committee, Organizing Committee for the Summit on Restructuring, also embarked on town hall style consultative meetings in Abuja, Lagos and Enugu to collect inputs from major segments of the Igbo society. Memoranda and inputs were also received by over 40 pan-Igbo groups, NGOs and individuals. A draft of what I'm presenting here was presented and debated at the National Executive Committee of Ohanaeze and as well as the IMOB of Ohanaeze on the 8th of this month. And therefore what we have here is a summary, and the issues remain work in progress. The position of Ndigbo is to seek for a transformed Nigeria that works for every Nigerian citizen. A level playing field for all Nigerians to enjoy freedom, liberty, fairness, equity, and justice to maximize their fullest potentials. Ndigbo are uniquely positioned by virtue of their huge stake in Nigeria to join hands with every willing party to champion a pan-Nigeria agenda. We do not seek any preferential or differential treatment from Nigeria. Ndigbo want a Nigeria that works to maximize their security, prosperity, and happiness. Igbos also want a Nigeria that allows every part of Nigeria the latitude and opportunity to develop at their own pace. We want a national conversation to create a new and better Nigeria for all Nigerians. And below now are some of the specific recommendations or proposals or the position of Ndigbo. Number one, the section 1. We demand for a new constitution of Nigeria. We demand for a constitutional conference backed by a law enacted by the National Assembly where the people of Nigeria will agree on a new, truly federal constitution. A constituent assembly should be constituted to agree on a new constitution for a new Nigeria. Such a constitution, the People's Constitution, should be approved by the people of Nigeria through a referendum to give it legitimacy and validity. Thereafter, the National Assembly should repeal Decree 24 of 1999, of which the 1999 Constitution is only a shadow, thereby effectively voiding the 1999 Constitution. Section 2 What form of government should we have when we go to negotiate? Ndigbo proposed that the presidential system of government shall continue to operate at the federal level with bicameral legislature. The regions or states shall determine the type of government to operate at that level as enshrined in their respective constitutions, whether they want parliamentary or the executive, legislative ones. It will be desirable, however, for the same form of government to be adopted at the regional levels for comparability and ease in transaction of government businesses in the federation. The second point we make here is that the tenure of office of the president shall be a single term of 6 years. There shall be 5 vice presidents, one from each of the other geopolitical zones or regions, excluding the region or zone of the president. And each also to serve for a fixed term of 6 years. Each of the vice presidents shall be assigned supervisory responsibility over 2 or more ministries such as defense, internal affairs, foreign affairs, finance, infrastructure, or works, etc. This is to give every zone or region a sense of belonging and a strong voice in major decision making. The office of the president shall rotate among the 6 regions of Nigeria. The governor and deputy governor of the region or state should have a single term of 6 years only. The office of governor shall rotate among the senatorial districts or among such other configurations as may be enshrined in the constitution of the region or state. Section 3, the federating units and structure of the Nigerian state. Ladies and gentlemen, Ndigbo proposed that Nigeria shall remain a federation with its existing 6 geopolitical zones forming the federating units or 6 regions of the country. There shall therefore be 6 regional governments, each comprising the current states within each zone and any other states that may be created within the zone from time to time. Second point, each region shall have its own constitution for the good governance, peace, and development of region. Such regional constitutions shall clearly delineate levels of authority between the regional government and the component states, defining which powers are exclusive to the region and powers that are residual to the states. The regional constitution shall not be inconsistent with the constitution of the federation and shall be invalidated to the extent of its inconsistency. The next point is that Ndigbo recognize that there may be some other regions or some other parts of Nigeria may have other preferences. But in the end, if the national consensus is that states remain the federating units, the existing geopolitical zone shall be enshrined in the constitution as the basis for sharing national, political, economic, and social amenities, offices, and opportunities in an equitable manner among the zones. We also recommend, and it's our position, that in such a situation as above, that is where the states remain the federating units, Ndigbo demand that Nigeria shall give effect to the recommendation of the 2014 National Conference, which states that, quote, in the spirit of reconciliation, equity, fair play, and justice, there shall be created an additional state for the Southeast Zone, and all other states for states creation shall then be considered after at least one additional state is created in the Southeast Zone. We demand this additional state as the irreducible minimum. But if states remain the basis for sharing resources and opportunities in Nigeria, Ndigbo demand for equal number of states per geopolitical zone. We also demand that local government should be scrapped from the constitution of the federation. Local government should be in the exclusive list of the regional or state constitutions. If states remain the federating units, and some states wish to merge in order to be viable in the absence of distributable resources from the center, they may do so provided that a 2/3 majority of members of the houses of assembly of the affected states support the merger by a resolution, and then a referendum is conducted in the respective states that want to merge, and 60% of them must then approve it, those who vote. Also, if any group, for example, you have the regional government here in the south, in the southeast, and our brothers in Anioma, Ikwere, or so want to become part of the Southeast region, you don't make it by force. It has to be, they will have to agree. You don't force anybody. And they will do so provided you have a referendum in those respective places who decide if you are a contiguous zone to any and belong to any contiguous zone, you can decide to go there with a referendum of 60% of registered voters there approving that you go to the other zone or region. Equality of regions or geopolitical zones. Section 4. Whether regions or states become the federating units and whether or not equal numbers of states are created in each zone, Ndigbo demand that the equality of the 6 geopolitical zones should be enshrined in the Constitution. Politically, representation at the federal cabinet, as well as the twin chambers of the federal legislature, shall be based on equality of zones or regions. Furthermore, sharing of revenues, distribution of infrastructure by the federal government, and federal character principle shall be applied on the basis of equality of zones. Section 5, citizenship, indigenship rights. Nigerian citizenship is acquired through the criteria for citizenship as provided in the Nigerian Constitution. The concept of the state of origin should be scrapped from the Constitution of the Federation and replaced with the state of residence. As an alternative to the above, if you don't scrap it, the state of origin, we then demand the following residency and civic rights responsibilities to include 2 conditions. Number 1, any child born of Nigerian parents anywhere in Nigeria shall acquire the indigenship residency rights of the area at birth. Number 2, similarly, any Nigerian citizen who has resided in any part of Nigeria and paid taxes there for a period of 10 years shall acquire the indigenship or residency rights of the area except for the right to their traditional stool. Internal security, section 6. There shall be established a 2 or 3 tier police structure with defined responsibilities as follows. A police force for the federation and controlled by the federal government and the regional or state constitutions to establish separate police forces for each region and maybe state. A police force, the police force at every level shall be headed by a non-partisan professional. The appointment and removal of such a head of the police shall be vested in an independent body. 7, sharing of financial resources of fiscal federalism. We argue that section 162 of the 1999 Constitution is a negation of the principle of federalism. It should be abrogated. In its place, a truly federal system that gives control of the resources to the competent component units and replaces the current system of unconditional transfers with conditional transfers from the center as follows. 1, we Ndigbo of the opinion that states should have control over all their natural resources within their territory. Fiscal federalism presupposes the revocation of the Land Use Act of 1978, the Solid Minerals Act, as well as the various Petroleum Gas Acts and amendments since 1969. The right of ownership, control, and exploitation of these and other assets should be returned to the states and or the federating units. The taxation powers of the various tiers of government should be reviewed to give the federating units greater flexibility and scope to generate revenue internally. And states with the federating units should collect and keep 50% of the rents, royalties, and profits taxes on minerals derived from their states. Pay 20% to the regional government and 30% to the federal government, provided that each tier of government shall save at least 5% of the receipts from natural mineral resources as future generation fund. The federal government should set aside 40% of revenue collected from the states or regions as distributable pool account. The balance of 60% plus 60% of its own independent revenue, such as customs duty, federal VAT, federal income tax, etc., shall be deployed to its diminished responsibilities. The sharing of the DPA should be equitable and should replace the present unconditional revenue allocation to the states and local governments. Among other things, the distributable pool account could be deployed to treat all kinds of emergencies, including flood, natural environmental emergencies like flood, erosion, earthquakes, conflict, man-made disaster, desert encroachment, and so on. And the distributable capital account to be distributed mainly as matching grants, no longer the unconditional handout from Abuja, so that each region can then strive as before to be able to develop on a competitive basis. The states within each region shall collectively decide what percentage of their consolidated revenue they shall allocate to the regional government for its operations, provided that such contribution shall not be less than 10% of the respective state's revenue. Section 8, and we'll wrap up, merit and federal character principle. Nigeria must maintain an appropriate balance between merit and affirmative action in the conduct of national and regional state affairs and the distribution of appointment, amenities, opportunities, and privileges among constituent parts. For example, why 60% should be reserved to merit, 40% could be reserved to ensure federal character principle or affirmative action. We recommend that the Federal Character Commission be replaced with Merit and Equal Opportunities Commission. And the next is elections. That's section 9 and 10, which ends in 10. Elections into the office of the President and Federal Legislature shall be conducted by the electoral body of the federal government. Elections into the regional or state offices shall be conducted by electoral or bodies set up by the regional or state constitutions or laws. It is believed that the current system of simple plurality system with simple relative majority as winner encourages minority governments and is considered out of date. We hereby propose a majoritarian system whereby a winner must score at least 50% of the votes cast to win an election. Independent candidates serve as a form of protest to political parties and should be allowed in the electoral system provided that such candidates meet some minimum criteria to be on the ballot. Section 10 is on judiciary. We argue that each federating unit shall have its judicial system with courts of first instance, appellate court, and supreme courts to adjudicate on matters that are in the concurrent and residual list, as well as matters exclusively preserved for the federating units. Where the states are the federating units, there shall be state high courts and zonal or regional court of appeal and zonal or regional supreme court on matters pertaining to the states and the zones respectively. It is the states or regional courts and their appellate courts that will have jurisdiction over electoral matters in their respective states or regions, except matters pertaining to the presidential election or federal elections. There shall also be the Federal High Court, Federal Appeal Court, and Federal Supreme Court to deal with matters on the exclusive list of the Constitution, as well as constitutional matters or conflicts between the federating units and the federal government. The next, we end with an annex. The Ndigbo proposed an annex, and this annex deals with the devolution of powers between the various tiers of government. To in the center, what should be in the exclusive list and what should be in the concurrent list. But a major change which Ndigbo proposed is that, unlike in the current 1999 constitution, the items on the concurrent list will no longer have the federal government having the overriding power. It is the case that federal government should in fact legislate mostly to maintain national minimum standards on items on the concurrent list and leave the regions and the states to legislate on operational matters and determine how their region or states should go. Where there is a conflict between the states and or the federating units and the federal government, it is proposed that such conflicts should be resolved through mutual consent. Ladies and gentlemen, what I have presented so far, that's the end, the annex, and this particular document, if approved by this summit, we're going to have it signed by the appropriate authorities or the representatives of the various contingent states, traditional rulers, and major segments of the Igbo society and circulated to everybody. We're just putting this as an agenda for deliberation. But then in conclusion, and I just said this conclusion as a personal note, ladies and gentlemen, philosophers have interpreted the world. The problem is to change it. I think let us get it done. Everybody seems to agree that we need to restructure Nigeria. PDP, APC, you dominate the National Assembly, and as we have proposed, give us a law tomorrow, impanel a constituent assembly, let them get to work. Even for the APC, you have recommended 3 key areas. You control 24 states of Nigeria plus the federal government. If you are serious about restructuring Nigeria, as you have said, get to work, and within the next 3 months, at least you have proposed that mineral resources should go to the states. That's a proposal they have there, that mineral resources should be given back to the states. You proposed a state police, and you have also proposed that we should scrap the local governments from the constitution and leave the issue of the local governments to be within the purview of the states. At least, even if we don't make progress on anything, let us set a deadline that within the next 3 months, 24 states and the federal government in the hands of one political party give us restructuring before the next election. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the submission of Ndigbo.
Thank you. Okebinana malakubo soko yabo umu ibem ifem na ayo unu na ife unu bịara ebe a tata bụ ka anyị bụ ndị Igbo ukwu wee tinye aka n'akwụkwọ ife Asoludo gụrụ anyị ka o wee balụ ndị Igbo. Ndị Igbo ekene ndị Igbo ekene unu mụanụ zụọ kachanụ daalụnụ sọ.
The Speaker of the Anambra State House of Assembly, on behalf of Southeast Houses of Assembly, moved a motion for adoption.
I have the singular honor and privilege to move that this solemn assembly do adopt everything that is put in that document as a working tool for us to use in restructuring Nigeria. I so move. Mindful of the work that has been done by the committee set up for this summit, and realizing that they carry the will of our people, I want to solemnly second the motion that will be moved by the National Assembly caucus leader. First, let me say that I stand by my colleagues from the Southeast in the National Assembly and State Assemblies in adopting the position of Ndigbo on restructuring. Let me add that we're not alone. We have people from other parts of Nigeria. We have seen the reason and the need for us to reflect on the journey so far and be able to adjust our movement to enable us arrive at our destination. So today is a very historic day in Nigeria. We have made a very historic move to move our country forward and be able to stop the killings going on by providing the necessary security architecture in a federal system such as ours. We believe that the resources we have in Nigeria is sufficient to make Nigeria the greatest nation in Africa if we restructure and take advantage of the solid minerals in the north and the agricultural potentials, and oil and gas in the south, and the human resources all over. We want to thank Nigerians that show solidarity to our people in times of our neglect.
especially in the last Constitutional Conference, where it was agreed that the Southeast require an additional state. I'm happy that most of you are here today to show that you still stand by us. In the next week or two, in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Southeast Development Commission bill will definitely be passed by the grace of God. Let me also add that in furtherance of what we agreed today, that we in the National Assembly will continue to network with our brothers and sisters of other parts of Nigeria in order to arrive at sufficient consensus on the issue of restructuring. No part of Nigeria can go it alone. We need to talk to ourselves, we need to network, we need to explain. We need to carry everybody along in this exercise and let them understand that it's the best for everybody. It's a win-win situation. I would like to call on our leaders from different parts of Nigeria to engage those who are not sufficiently convinced on this enterprise that Nigeria will be better and greater for everybody if we restructure our country. And I would like to commit myself to the fact that once the bills for restructuring are produced, that I, Senator Ike Ekweremadu, will be the lead sponsor of those bills.
At the summit, Ndigbo, in unmistakable terms, declared their strong preference for the restructuring of the Nigerian Federation as the only panacea for the stuttering attempts that Nigeria has been making towards nationhood over the years. The Ekweme Square Declaration expounds the gray areas in the perceptions of the national leadership in Nigeria and the oddities about the country's constitution that hardly represents the true interest of majority of the diverse peoples of Nigeria on the terms of association as federating units.
I hate oppression. I hate injustice. I hate marginalization. I have a duty to fight injustice, oppression, and anything that makes Nigeria one-sided. What you have done today, we all, in the Southwest, South-South, Middle-West, and a very intelligent person who understands the problem of this country is about. This is a sacred document. We will not support it. Let us have it, and we will set it to our need.
We in Afenifere give support to Ohanaeze is championing the cause for restructuring, not because we love your faith, it is because we love ourselves. We are all under oppression under this constitution. The only thing that can bring peace, cohesion, understanding, collaboration in a united Nigeria is a restructured Nigeria. Without restructuring, you are only paying lip service to united Nigeria. You don't have to go all over while to restructure. And His Excellency Obiano struck the note. And this is what I would wish you take home. What we are fighting for today, our founding fathers have done it. Dr. Zikwe did it. He did it with Awolowo. He did it with Saudana. And the question I often put to our opponents from the North is, are you wiser than your founding father? Why are you now hesitant to do what they did for you? And we were moving on well after independence. The army struck and disrupted what our founding fathers did. So what we are now doing today, which I am very happy, you very well
intellectually organized to support is to refer us back to where we started, which gave us unity in this country. I give you congratulations, and you can be sure, as long as you stand firm on the restructured Nigeria under federalism, with all the components of federalism, there should be no Nigerian factor in federalism. Amending this, amending that, federalism is federalism. All that they are asking for, the state police, local government police, judiciary, they are all the ingredients of federalism. So, the moment you have restructured Nigeria under federalism, we have a united, peaceful Nigeria where we are always be happy.
All I want to say now is that we in the Middle Belt today are at the forefront of the struggle. The battlefront is the Middle Belt. All the killings today is the Middle Belt. But we are not daunted. We are also not cowards. Because Middle Belt has never been conquered. We are not a conquered people. Just like I said that the Igbos are not a conquered people. But we've got the same right to live in Nigeria and to pursue our purposes in one accord. So, today, I'd like to say that as we continue for this struggle, please, I want you to remember our brethren in the Middle Belt who are falling day by day, even as we sit here. Some are being killed. There are so many wrong things happening. And unless we fight together as one people, this injustice will continue. And it's our duty to avert it. And so our presence here as Middle Belters, and we are quite a few here today, is to render our full support.
The historic event availed Ndigbo a moment of solemn reminiscence and rumination over their trodden paths. It compelled them to endorse profound projections and suggestions on how to effect equitable participation among the ethnic nationalities in a progressive Nigeria.
I want to reiterate one fact. We as the Igbos demand to be treated as equal partners in the Nigerian project. We have paid very dearly for the unity of this country. We demand that that unity be a constructive one. As Dim Chukwuemeka Odumegwu said, we are not looking for the type of unity akin to that unity of Jonah in the belly of the whale, or that unity that exists between the horse and its rider. We are looking for the kind of unity that leads to constructive engagement, because we are tired of explaining to our children why that glass ceiling exists, why they cannot realize their potentials in this nation, and why we continue to be quarantined as rebels. Today, we have seen that rebels do not come only from the east. Today, we see that rebels also come from the north.
Now, what can one say other than to support in total all the recommendations made, and to ask that we don't rest on our own. Luckily, we have a deputy Senate President who is number 2 in the National Assembly, and his colleagues here who promised to take this out when we go to the National Assembly. All of us here must unite behind these recommendations. We did that of the National Conference of 2014. And we realized virtually everything that was read out here today. It is the implementation. Our country must remain one Nigeria, but the evils and the rest of us here must not be oppressed. We must not be downgraded. We must have a fair share in the country that we fought. God bless you all.
The Ekweme Square Declaration, a well-articulated document that expresses the position of Ndigbo in Nigeria's renewed quest for sustainable nationhood, therefore became the Igbo's endorsed document on the Nigerian nation that compulsorily needs restructuring.
Come on.